I've noticed that whenever I'm doing one of these shelf tour videos, time flies for me. Time flies whenever I'm spending it on making a shelf tour video. Recently somebody sent me an email and I loved it. I replied to them in a high-minded fashion, but a heartfelt fashion, and I hope that they like my reply. More books everywhere. More books everywhere. So much to get through here. So let's start with this book down here. Let's take it back to the candlelight. What is this? What even is this? Milton Cross's Complete Stories of the Great Operas. I think I mentioned this book once before, either in the company of my friend's mom, who had a copy in her childhood home when she was growing up, or in company of you, my viewers. And I think I'm just familiar with how common this book actually is. Oh my gosh, Wenzel. What is Wenzel in? I love the name Wenzel. What is Wenzel in? The Bartered Bride. The Bartered Bride by Bedřich Smetana. This is a kind of a gorgeous book. Basically, the reason I had to have it was that I thought it would have stories told unlike any other stories that I own or have encountered. Because in the course of turning into opera, stories must be changed somehow fundamentally, where their basic parts are as though, totally unique among story paragraphs. The square of a Bohemian village. At one side is an inn. It is spring and the time of the annual church festival. Villagers, dancing about in the square, sing a gay chorus hailing the spring. In it is a light-hearted warning against rushing headlong into marriage, thus forfeiting days of youthful freedom. Among the couples in the square are Hans and his sweetheart, Marie. During an interlude in the chorus, Hans asks Marie why she is downcast, and she replies that today she is to meet the man whom her parents have chosen to be her husband. Hans tells her to have courage, for nothing can harm a steadfast heart. Then the chorus resumes its exuberant theme. The singing dies away as the villagers leave. This book was published in 1947. I think of present tense novels as being really rare at the time that this was published. I have before me many present tense novels, present tense and future tense novels. He will go forth again. Present tense novels on subjects that are now kind of exotic because the world of opera is to most of us pretty rarefied and unknown. So not just as a text to read straight through, but also a text to kind of sample from tonally, to kind of collage from in terms of concrete sentences, words, etc., and then also just in terms of general tone. Kind of a unique book in my collection, and one that won't leave the collection anytime soon. Roger Weingarten, Richard M. Higgerson, and Jack Myers contributed things to this anthology, Poets of the New Century, purchased for $7.98 and published by Godine, the same press that I think does things like Life a User's Manual and my little copy of On Being Blue. I haven't spent a lot of time with this collection, but I think it's good. There are lots of poets in here that I've never encountered before. I expect that when I finally barrel through the whole thing, I will be a much more knowledgeable reader of modern poetry. I'll know actually what came before. Here's a name I know, Stuart Dybek. It's cool that Stuart Dybek is in here. I wonder if these are prose poems. Stuart Dybek is a poet and short story writer who's very tough to get away from if you live in Chicago. He's big in Chicago. He has a book called The Coast of Chicago. He's very influential on the kinds of short story writers who teach you in college and stuff like that, and he writes well and concretely, and he's great to kind of study. Vigil. On a brick street slicked with a ruby spiritual neon, I thought I saw you again, bareheaded in damp weather. I recognized the shape of your breath in the cold. To whom else could that shadow belong when, by the flickered vigil light of bums cupping a match in radiant hands, you passed? From the all-night laundromat, the great round sloshy eyes of wash machines watched through steamed windows. With each rap of your heels, your legs, distorted but still beautiful, disappeared down a chrome aisle of hubcaps, and raising my arm, I remembered the weight of your body, reflected along the length of a silver-plated cufflink, cloudy with sweat. Suggestive, very evocative, very concrete, dreamy, dreamlike, carefully written, something to emulate, you know? I mean, this is just one person from this book. I mean, here we have Stephen Dobbins. I think I've given books by that poet to somebody as a gift before. Many other things. There are pages where there isn't even like a poet's name for most of the page. You can kind of just turn and read a random poet. So this seems like a very a comprehensive and valuable collection of poets of the new century. I guess it's kind of an old century at this point, right? Now, a dear loved one of mine gave me a subscription to the Paris Review for a year back in 2019, and here are two of them. Yeah, here we have two of them. For me, the big part of any Paris Review is the interviews. So we got Carl Phillips, Ferlinghetti, Bidart, Bicon, and Louis Lapham, not a Bicon. I don't know why I said that. That was stupid. Two Paris reviews here. We've got an essay by Lydia Davis. Oh, we've got the Czerny Variations by John Ashbery over here, which are later found in Parallel Movement of the Hands, that book of unfinished poems that you get in 2021. When are these from? We can see so it was in 2019 that I got the subscription. We got summer and spring 2019. I kind of like this cover where it was like this format, but then it kind of broke out and got kind of handwritten. John Ashbery, 2 years dead at this point. Here we have Suketu Mehta's This Land is Our Land, an Immigrant's Manifesto, advertised on the back as one of the books offered by Farrar, Straus and Giroux for spring 2019. It's crazy how Farrar, Straus and Giroux just has, it has the back page of every issue of the Paris Review just in perpetuity as advertising real estate. The Dolphin 2 versions by Robert Lowell. That's kind of cool. I have a copy of The Dolphin that's somewhere around here that I actually kind of enjoy reading. And for a while I was thinking I might give it away. I wonder if it's on any of these shelves that are coming up soon. I think it actually is. It's somewhere in this room, or the room adjoining it. But I really like The Dolphin. I like these kind of sonnet things, these 14-line poems. They're not sonnets, but they're like sonnet-sized chunks of a life. I think that they're really good if you want to kind of dip your toes in like the river of poetry, and then eventually kind of get in it full bore. Something about these is like a gateway. Frolic and Detour is a good poem Muldoon poem title. Why am I rambling on like this? I don't know. About what's on the back of the Paris Review. I'm rambling on about this because it's very nice to have a YouTube channel where I could just talk about books this way, and friendly people will click and hopefully comment. It's just very it's very fun for me. So next we have my copy of Within a Budding Grove by Proust. It's a modern library edition. This is a volume of Proust that I have read once, cover to cover. You can see it's kind of worn from being in a backpack and handled by hand. You find with a lot of these modern library books that they get the paint worn off, as you know. I talk about that a lot. I mean, my Wings of the Dove is very much like that. It has like a patch job here that's done in masking tape that has dirt all around the edges of the pieces of the masking tape. There are plenty of notes in here. There are even kind of life moments that were written in the side. I think right when I was stopping reading this book halfway through, kind of like how I stopped reading Guermantes Way halfway through a few years ago, I wrote down kind of what was going on around that time, and I think that's in here. I loved this book. Of course, it wasn't as much of a headlong rush as Swann's Way, but I still love this book, and I think it's the one that won that French prize. I would like to talk about Proust more in general on this channel. I recently purchased a copy of, what's the other one? Oh, the Jean Saint-Ouen. Jean Saint-Ouen. This fella here. I found a nice edition of this for a friend who needed it. A Proustian who really needed it, and I bought it for that friend. Next up, we have many, it looks like pocket poets books. We have Lunch Poems by Frank O'Hara in an edition that I bought as a gift. There is this copy of Anne Waldman's Fast-Speaking Woman in this kind of movie tie-in cover, it seems. And this is signed by Anne Waldman, and I remember when I bought it from McKay's, I made a little short video about it. This is Kisses from Another Dream by Antonio Porta. I thought that this was the poet who was most recommended by this poet I like, Nathan Hawks, in an article. It turns out it wasn't this poet, I don't think. But I still enjoy reading this book. It's like poems translated from the Italian. You've got the Italian on the left, and you've got the English on the right. Yeah, it's pretty good. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but if every book of poems was exactly what I wanted, then I would have written them all or something. So their value is in that they surprise me. And then we've got the Ginsberg books I got. We got Mind Breaths, which is one of the kind of, it's maybe the last one in this series. No, maybe in this series of ones that look like this. It's kind of in the middle of that. It has nice long ones. It has music in there. It has, I feel like I always turn to this Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin. Buddha died and left behind a big emptiness. Yeah, this book I was always putting in my backpack for the longest time. We have Howl in this kind of earlier printing. In terms of in Howl numbers, this is pretty low as printings go. Just your 8th printing, September 1959. Man, this thing really sold. Something that's cool about it is that it has this inscription, Bill from Dave, November 14th, 1961. You wonder what Bill and Dave's relationship was like. You'll notice that whereas that last edition of Howl was bound perfect bound, this one is staple bound. It's like a booklet. And I kind of like that. I think that makes it a little bit slimmer and actually more transportable. But I think the kind of the oldness of this edition, the kind of the fact that it's from 1959, that hallowed year, keeps me from taking it out with me very much. I mean, I think the kind of the collectability of the pocket poets actually ends up working against it as something to put in your pocket and carry around, right? At a certain point. The selected poems of Malcolm Lowry. I was looking for this for a while. When I found it, it didn't disappoint. I think I turned to a poem that I liked. Let's see if it still holds up. Yeah, it seems more draftish, not as spectacular or as fluid as other poems or something. But I was looking for this for a long time, and then I think I eventually dropped $20 on this or something. I had just maybe gotten hired at a job after being unemployed for a long time. It was one of those kinds of things. And then we have Lunch Poems in another edition. This is the one that I typically read and take out. It's a little bit older. I think it's from the 70s or something. And it's got a nice kind of fade to the orange. Really ideal copy of Lunch Poems. Kind of weathered enough to look a little bit sentimental, but sturdy enough to be something you can actually put in your pocket. And it's got the poop poem, and it's got all kinds of stuff. It's got this one. So don't blame me if you won't take this advice and the family breaks up and your children grow old and blind in front of a TV set seeing movies you wouldn't let them see when they were young. Poems contain truth, people. What's a Clock by Amy Lowell. I purchased this at a bookstore on State Street that no longer exists. It was called Browsers, spelled with a Z. As you see, this title is just glued on. It's a hardcover with this kind of tightly woven, kind of shiny, oily blue cloth. And there's a title also glued on to the spine. No publisher's information. But then you see the poet's name, Amy Lowell. I feel like that British kid on YouTube who always is telling you about these like rare Hobbit editions. Yeah, this is where I get real collecty, is when I bring out stuff like this. Houghton Mifflin published this. Here you see all the other books by Amy Lowell. You see the nice title page. You see that this book was printed in 1925 when Amy Lowell was a much bigger name than she is now. Oh, and here we have the source of the title. This book is kind of attractive. The lines are separated by kind of big spaces, and the poems sound kind of awesome. Shall I give you white currants? I do not know why, but I have a sudden fancy for this fruit. At the moment, the idea of them cherishes my senses, and they seem more desirable than flawless emeralds. Since I am, in fact, empty-handed, I might have chosen gems out of India, but I chose white currants. Is it because the raucous wind is hurtling round the house corners? I see it with curled lips and stripped fangs, gaunt with a hunting energy, come to snout and nibble and kill the little crocus roots. Shall we call it white currants? You may consider it as a symbol if you please. You may find them tart or sweet or merely agreeable in color, so long as you accept them and me. So, I mean, this is kind of an interesting, I think a lot of people probably won't think that's the best poem in the world, but I think it's an interesting consideration of how your emotions move about when you're considering giving a gift to somebody, and when you're thinking about how you want to give thanks and also give them hell, kind of. And then I also like that she kind of refers to this considering things in her poems as symbols, because I think that was common practice at the time, I want to say. There's like a T.S. Eliot-ish tone to this I see it with curled lips and stripped fangs. There are a lot of attractive things about this collection, beginning with the physical nature of the edition and then kind of proceeding into the texts. I like how this begins. Lilacs, false blue, white, purple, color of lilac, your great puffs of flowers are everywhere in this my New England. And there's just something so lovely about poems like this, where there's not a whole lot of artifice. There's just kind of like, we're trying to get close to thought, and the thoughts aren't particularly revolutionary. I'm not saying that I know exactly what every poem in this book is like, but there's a kind of comfort to reading poems like this. And Amy Lowell has been a favorite poet of mine for a while. She has poems of all different styles, and I think this might be from a little bit later in her career, actually, when she was fairly well established. I mean, you saw on the front there that she already had lots of books of poems to her name. So that's one of the coolest collections of poems I have. I think I might have shown it in that poetry shelf overview that I did a couple of years ago, where I had a top shelf of small books of poems. This is definitely something that would have been on that shelf. We have my copy of Palgrave's Golden Treasury, and it's 4 priceless parts. This is a book to use. It's very sturdy, and it's full of gems, and I love it. There you go, Golden Treasury. I love you. Britain, War Requiem, an essay book by Mervyn Cook, published by Cambridge University Press. Another one for the music library. Britain I sang a little bit of in college, but I don't really know much about him other than that he's great. But that's one that I'm keeping in store for the music library. So a little while ago, I went to Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, and I went to the National Dairy Shrine that's there. And while I was in town enjoying the shrine and other things, I think there was a kind of a supermarket there that I went into and got a bottle of water from. I liked crossing the river. I liked the tower, etc. I think I got something really nice out of a little free library. This little book, I'll Find My Love, that we'll probably get to at some point, because I don't think that book's going to leave my collection anytime soon. And then while I was there, as you as you do when you're in Fort Atkinson, I was reminded of Lorraine Nidecker, this wonderful poet who lived there. And she has this wonderful book of poems, The Granite Pail, the selected poems of Lorraine Nidecker. And this kind of bought me some cred with some really nice poets I was talking to the other day. And by the other day, I mean like 8 or 10 months ago. I said that I finally had a book of hers, and it was The Granite Pail. There are lots of poems in here about death that if you kind of just turn to the wrong page and just read from anywhere, you might put off your listener by just kind of going to a little shard of death. I don't know. Rather than going to something totally pleasant. Like, here you go. Shelter. Hold damp cellar black beyond the main atrocities, my sense of properties adrift. Not burned, we sweat. We sink to water, death. Your hand, this was land, disowns. I think that's a portion of a longer poem, right? Yeah, here you go. This is like a series of poems. Traces of living things. Yeah, so this is really cool. I like this poem here. And there's much to admire about The Granite Pail. Oh, and it's from that Gnomon Press, who did that Wendell Berry book that I love. Maybe they specialize in poets like this, who write about nature, write about their surroundings, are in touch with their hometowns. Maybe Gnomon loves that. They love the wisdom of the land filtered through the fine minds of these sensitive poets of delicate little lapidary poem objects. SOS, Poems 1961 to 2013, purchased on Michael Robbins' recommendation. What beauty is not anomalous and strange? What love is not in danger and fragile? What goodness is not sometimey and sweet? What grand joyousness not shy and seeming incomplete? We are what we can be together, never enough, though without each other we don't know ourselves, and would spend the rest of our days looking over our shoulder at where we thought we saw ourselves crossing another street. And that's the tour. That's the shelf tour. I'm kidding. I was just saying, I would thought it'd be funny if I was like, that's the shelf tour. I'm gonna go read this. I was a Hitchens kid. And this is going to be a great book. I know it's written really well. There's lots of history in here, lots of research. I should really read the whole thing. I mean, everyone who's watching this video has read the whole thing, right? You've all read all of Black Lamb and Grey Falcon, right? If you're a Penguin Classic head, you're gonna absolutely love this one. Nice, juicy Penguin Classic. Isn't there stuff that's just about travel, though? The doctors themselves were living richly. I know that in Hitchens' introduction, he says that you should think of this book as many books rolled into one. And it certainly has the pages for several books. It has the pages for just about 11 Cesar Ira novels. Next, we have this hymnal from All Saints Catholic Church. And I use it as a resource to kind of harken back to my childhood and remember songs I used to sing in church. Here you go. Here we got Here I Am, Lord. I actually used this book when I was recording, simple versions of some of these hymns for a CD for my mom. It's a sturdy hardback, meant to withstand a lot of abuse from kids, messing with the books in pews. There are those candles. I'm realizing why I haven't made more of these shelf tour videos and why they've been kind of hard for me to make is that I talk a lot and I don't necessarily breathe enough before I talk. And I end up kind of wearing my voice out, to be quite honest. Oh, but I'm so excited about this one. So, you know how I said that I really want to read more plays and stuff? Well, Sam Shepard is a big part of that. I bought that book, The Unseen Hand. And God, I am so excited to get back to The Unseen Hand after recording and uploading this video. I'm probably not going to record any more of these, honestly. But after recording this video, I want to get up and read more Sam Shepard. Now, Sam Shepard was really introduced to me by Paris, Texas. That's like really where I got introduced to him. I saw him in Days of Heaven, of course. but I didn't really understand what he was like as an artist until I got to watch Paris, Texas, and think about his screenplay for it. And then I finally read a play of his after having missed a play that was put on by a friend of mine in college, the Geography of a Horse Dreamer. I finally got to actually read a play of his recently, and I loved heck out of it. And I think, like, of all the things that I've considered today, maybe the Ashbury that I was reading earlier in the day, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that, I don't know, maybe there's really nothing that feels like it speaks more directly to my concerns than these Sam Shepard plays in terms of their absurdity, their humanity, their desperation, their hilarity. This is the kind of stuff I want to be reading. I want to write stuff like this where when you encounter it and act it out in your mind, there's a phantasmagorical, like entertaining, really almost overwhelming kind of stage play happening. Almost like a Temptation of St. Anthony that almost could never be staged in real life, but just it's larger than life, but it fits perfectly in your hungry mind. So that doesn't really describe my interest in this book, Motel Chronicles. I think I'm just interested in this because I picked it up because it was on sale at Room of One's Own in the clearance section back when they had one, and it's a City Lights book, just like that book by Kit Schluter, cartoons that just came out that I need a copy of. Yeah, it's kind of attractive as an object for someone who wants to read more Sam Shepard, because we have poems, bits of travel writing, and also short stories, and they're all dated too. So it really feels like a great document to have on hand if you want to get to know this guy better. I think I read a short story from here a long time ago, like maybe 5 years ago, and I wasn't reading it well. I think some books, even though the house is quiet and the candle is bright, etc., your chair is comfortable and your glass of water is chilly with a steadfast cube of ice in it and all that, you still just, like, your brain, your personality just is clamped up and you just don't hear things. But now I hear this author, and I really like this author. Here we have one of the first books I ever owned when I was maybe 10 or 11. I got this copy of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and I got it with the dust jacket, and I took the dust jacket off because I didn't like it. It had kind of a weird mildewy look. And I did not understand this book. I did not understand it. I couldn't read it. I wasn't a good enough reader yet. But I've kept it around, and it just has a place of prominence as one of the first books I ever got. And I do want to reread it. Persons attempting to find a motive in this narrative will be prosecuted. Persons attempting to find a moral in it will be banished. Persons attempting to find a plot in it will be shot, by order of the author. Now, I think we could all stand to more seriously consider this notice a little more often. Think about this as it pertains to your writing. Okay, there you go. That was a good moment. I had a friend who took a look at this book and liked it. This is that guy who won the Nobel Prize, and I think he's kind of controversial, but I think he's also written screenplays that are beloved by people. You know, that's like a superficial similarity to Sam Shepard. This book was reviewed by John Updike, I think, in, it's either in Hugging the Shore or Odd Jobs or something. And it's clearly up my alley as somebody who likes Robbe-Grillet and likes novelistic experiments like this. And I like reading shocking books. When I was younger, I remember having a really good reading experience with a book that was too shocking for me to even handle, which was Fowles's The Collector. I couldn't even finish it, but I really have a good time reading horror, reading horrific states of mind, to a point. I drink as much as I can, and what I can take tends to nourish me. I think it tends to stir my imagination in a way that persists beyond the realm of horror and actually helps me just be a better, like, kind of joker. I don't know. That's kind of fantastic. Who knows what that means, what I just said. But yeah, I think this one has a very like minute style. I think it's supposed to be very chilling. It's kind of stranger-ish. I mean, well, here we go. We have, okay, well, it says that on the cover. Yeah, and I think I'm probably going to enjoy it. Maybe some of the amount that I enjoyed A Personal Matter by Kenzaburo Oe, because I love that book. I love the chillingness of that book and the reality of it. I don't know that this book is going to be as real as that book was. A Personal Matter is a masterpiece because it is, as the title says, it contains someone is pouring their heart into that book, and it's kind of shattering to read, but at the end of the day, you know the world a little bit better because someone was being honest. I wonder if this one will be like that. I just don't know. But I tend to like these paperbacks, these the FSG ones. I want the the posthumous memoirs of Bras Cubas, or the epitaph of a small winter in this press, and I want the Bartholomew Dead Father that's in this press. I would like those very much. I think there's also Joan Didion in this. Oh yeah, no, you get nice copies of Flannery O'Connor in these editions. I read The Violent Bear It Away in one of these FSG Classics editions, and it was a great reading experience, and I love that novel. That actually happens to be maybe my favorite, maybe my favorite Flannery O'Connor book. I mean, of course, the stories are, are perfect, but anyway, that's dubious, but whatever. I really like The Violent Bear It Away, and that happens to be published by these people too. I have far too many books to talk about one by one. It's just becoming painfully clear. David Foster Wallace, Girl with Curious Hair. What do you think about this edition? It's the stripped edition. It's the kind of plain white paper edition. I wouldn't mind if people have a source for books that are published with the same quality of binding as a normal paperback, but without anything on the covers, but with the contents unchanged. Like, if you have a hookup for that, please let me know, because I'm liking what this is giving to me. I like that it kind of just invites you to only really consider the text as representative of the book. Haven't read this whole thing, and I know it concludes with that famous novella. It's kind of like something I'm saving for myself. David Foster Wallace, like, you get the feeling that the style that enables the flights of fancy also kind of hobbles them at some point by tethering them too tightly to this like style. I feel like a style that might tolerate a little more inconsistency would, like, it might even be better. I don't know. Now I'm just really talking out of my you-know-what. What really happened is, you know how those books have those, like, laminated things? Well, this one had that, like, laminated plastic thing, and then it was kind of peeling up, and I just peeled it off, and it took off a lot of the ink that had the picture of the cover with it. A book of poetry that I bought and kept. The Diamond Sutra and the Sutra of Huineng. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. But it looks cool, though. Here we have more Hankey. We have something I got from McKay's because it was cheap. Wait, oh my God. I can't even see what the title is. On a Dark Night, I Left My Silent House. This one seemed like it might be a cool addition because whereas my other one is like kind of a thriller, this one seems more like a memoiristic kind of meta novel by an author about writing. I tend to really be forgiving of stuff like that. I like stuff like that, you know? An author just writing about writing. If it's just kind of purely that and there's no artifice where it's like trying to make that really significant or something, and it's just kind of a close look at a day in the life, I kind of like that. You know, if that's all you have to observe, as long as you're observing closely, I don't give a crud. You know, I like that. Fine. First read it in a copy that I checked out of the Regenstein Library and then got this paperback. Diane Williams is kind of like horror or something. It's like I can't take much, but what I can take is instructive to me. Head of the Big Man. The family was blessed with more self-confidence than most of us have, and with a great lawn, with arbors and beds of flowers. and with a fountain in the shape of a sun at the south end. It is not our purpose to say anything imprecise about their scheme, how they had gotten on with tufted and fringed furniture, with their little tables, a parquet floor, a bean pot. Yeah, that's a paragraph. If I may say so myself, that's a paragraph. And then what are we finishing up with here? Tell Me a Riddle by Tilly Olson. Chronicle of a Death Foretold in a clean copy, not the copy I read in high school, but one that I've been keeping so that I can read the book without being distracted by old notes. And then Charles Ives, A Life with Music, a more recent edition than either of these two. In addition to the music library, I tend to like biographies of musicians. Really loved my books on Bach and Bill Evans. Those are two of my favorite books in my library, honestly. Things to reread. And I've also liked books on Miles Davis, Guided by Voices, They Might Be Giants, etc. Well, what was the most recent one I read? I was reading aloud from Miles Davis's autobiography in the car on a recent leg of a tour. And that was kind of successful. It seemed like the other people in the car tended to like it. And here we have this book on Charles Ives, a figure I've always found fascinating. I've always thought it was really cool. He has this William Carlos Williams life where he was professional and also had this very intense revolutionary life as an artist. A revolutionary kind of atonality guy. And an interesting one. It doesn't seem like he's atonal in the typical kind of 12-tone row kind of, I don't know. His music has a specific flavor. You may know him from The Unanswered Question. I could stand to listen to him more. I love his song, Songs My Mother Taught Me and the Days Long Vanished. This will be a wonderful read. I feel like looking at this shelf, the things that I'm most excited to read as soon as possible are Charles Ives' A Life with Music, Motel Chronicles, Black Lamb and Grey Falcon, honestly, SOS, because that poem I read was pretty sick. And maybe rereading Within a Budding Grove would be sick. And then reading some more out of this opera book would be awesome. Those are the things I'm most excited about with right now. And now in this absolute just mess of books, I'm drowning, and I'll stop for now and rest my voice and pick up later. Happy reading.